The Philippines. Is it everything everyone claims it is? Or is someone lying about the Philippines? Well, today we're going to explore that in today's video, exposing the lies of living in the Philippines. This is by Wes. He's a content creator here on YouTube. Consider subscribing to the original video down in the description and supporting him. He makes great polling content as well as just great content in general. I'm learning about the Philippines as there's that's somewhere where I want to visit during the New Year's, experience the Filipino New Year's. It's probably one of the biggest in the world. So, in my journey of learning of the Philippines, I think it's important to check out what other people are saying about the cons of the Philippines. So, let's explore both sides if we can. Let's get both sides. Let's get it.
YouTubers are lying to you about the Philippines. I have a unique perspective because my family is from the Philippines. Today we're going to break down the pros and cons, and by the end of this video, you may realize that the Philippines may not be for you. So first I want to talk about the pros of living in the Philippines.
Of course,
Number
the
one
pros.
is definitely the cost of living. I think it's a little more expensive than Thailand and Vietnam, but it's still nowhere what you would be paying in Europe or in the West. Because most expats are only going to be really staying in Makati or BGC, it's kind of hard to talk about Philippines as a whole because those are really just bubbles, and that's where I guess the people with money in the Philippines live. It's not really indicative of the rest of the Philippines.
Which I'm as somebody who's been looking up videos and content to like learn from and like hear y'all's opinions and even ask questions on. I'm starting to see that that's a lot of the case, at least content creators wise. Now, I do want to be fair in saying that's not all the content that exists in regards to the Philippines. As you can see that there's some videos that we're going to react to that are from other places in the Philippines that are much more rural. So I do want to be fair and say that, but he is kind of right. I mean, a lot of the videos that are pushed up the top are like BGC, for example. Um, but do you feel that way as in a person that lives in the Philippines? Do you feel like big cities are being overrepresented? Which, if you think about it, in every country, I feel like the big cities are overrepresented. But is it more than usual? I guess is the real question. Let me know in the comments.
Of course, things are a lot cheaper in the provincial areas, but I don't think most expats are going to be spending time here. So rent in these areas are going to be ranging from maybe around $700 a month to upwards of maybe even 1,500, 2,000, depending on what you get. Also having people come and cook for you, clean your house, watch your kids, all of those services are extremely cheap. Filipino people are
Which, and to be honest, it's still dramatically. I hate the word cheap because it kind of means like it's less valuable, but I think it's not as expensive. I like using the word not expensive. You know, those two words rather than cheap, because sometimes people say cheap and they think it's worse, like worse quality, but I don't think it's worse quality. If anything, it probably is better quality than here in the US. It's just less expensive.
absolutely amazing. They're some of the most friendly and hospitable people that you will ever meet in your life. However, they can be quite problematic, which we will talk about later in this video. The women
Interesting.
here are beautiful, but I think it depends on your taste. For me personally, I don't find the women in Manila that attractive. However, in Cebu, surprisingly, the women were extremely beautiful. The women here are a lot more marriage minded because of the Catholic
Good.
values, especially
Good.
the ones from the province. So a lot of them want to meet a guy and have kids and be a stay-at-home mom. Age gap relationships are a lot more accepted here. So
Which I know, contrary to the West in the United States, if someone says, you know what, I want this for my life, and they're willing to go out and seek that, I think that's fine in regards to like a traditional marriage and traditional life. Um, I'll tell you what, it's a lot simpler and less problems. You have less worries in the world compared to like some of these other complicated relationships or what's the funny word, situationships. You avoid those. So I mean, I think there's a certain value to having peace in your life. I'd much rather have that, to be honest. So I'm sure you probably heard that before, but I do want to say that there's a lot of us in the West that actually think some of the older ways of thinking were much better.
So that's why a lot of retirees come to the Philippines because 50, 60-year-old men can get with a 19-year-old or a 21-year-old, and it's quite normal. It's
I'll be honest. I'm probably the only thing I disagree with in this video. I'm not a fan of like those huge age gaps, but Hey, you know what? If they make it work, I'm not gonna judge, but I'm not a fan of it.
Maybe not as safe as some of the other Asian countries, but compared to Latin America, the Philippines is very, very safe. You
Oh,
may have to
yeah.
worry about slight pickpocketing here and there, but a lot of the crime is targeted. For example, like a political assassination, or you mess with the wrong syndicates. If you're just an average tourist, nothing's gonna really happen to you. There's access to a
Which I have been looking up some of this stuff because obviously I want to visit the Philippines, and it's just important to really get a holistic picture. Sorry, I'm pausing so much. He's just throwing so much information out really quickly. But I actually don't think, compared to the rest of the world, the Philippines is not that. There's people that make it seem a lot worse in regards to security wise. And when I'm looking at it as somebody who lived in Mexico for years, for almost 8 years, the thing is, it's like, yeah, Mexico is safe for me, but it's because I understood the environment, right? But I would never, ever, ever recommend someone just live there randomly, or even visit in certain times. Like, whereas like the Philippines, the people, it's just really not that. It's not as bad as everybody makes it seem. And I do want to give credit to the Filipinos in my chat. Let me know in the comments if you feel that way. At least from an outsider's perspective, I think y'all deserve more credit than you are getting for how safe your country is. And not to mention, even in the last few years, y'all started building y'all's military, so you are less susceptible to like outside forces. So I mean, I'm just saying, like, y'all, the fact that you are such friendly people and you are managed to somehow make it work when it comes to, because usually when you have a really friendly population, crime tends to be high because they take advantage of them. But the fact that, like, no, y'all managed to make it work. And pickpocketing, by the way, isn't every tourist spot. So I don't even count that, to be honest. But
lot of good international food. Surprisingly, there are a lot of Western options in the Philippines.
yeah, I saw
But
that
because it's an
too.
Asian country, there's also a lot of Japanese, Korean, Chinese, a bunch of different Asian foods. And Filipino food is awesome as well.
Oh, it's
Sinigang is my
amazing.
favorite soup of all time. BGC specifically has a growing entrepreneur scene, so if you're looking to network and meet like-minded people, that is a great place to do it.
Hmm.
One of the biggest pros
I do want to. Sorry, I want to get back to the food. Can I say this about the Filipino food? I need to give y'all some more credit. Um, so like, so a lot of people rate Mexican food pretty high on the scale of food. But the one thing about Mexican food that people need to understand, no matter how good it is, it's somehow always unhealthy. It's some of the worst food for your body. As somebody who gained a lot of weight, I can tell you, right? It's just like, it's so good, but it's so unhealthy. Whereas like Filipino food, it's so good and it's still relatively healthy. There's a lot of healthy options and ways to make the food, like the good food, healthy. You know what I mean? Whereas like Mexican food, it feels like the unhealthier the better it tastes. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe let me know if you agree with this or not. I just think like every culture has its ups and downs, and I think that's one of the things about my culture, at least Mexican culture, was no matter how good the food is or how it's always gonna be unhealthy. So let me know what you think in the comments.
is that it is an English speaking country. So coming
Yes.
there as an American or someone from the West, it's a very easy transition for us. It's very easy to get a long-term visa there. The Philippines
Is it
also has a
though?
lot of direct flights to anywhere in the world because there are so many Filipino workers overseas. There's a lot of beautiful beaches, there's a lot of natural beauty in the Philippines.
Which shout outs to Filipinos. The fact that, so hey, just letting y'all know, somebody who lives in Seattle right now, Washington. The fact that y'all have managed to figure out the logistics of getting everybody to your island and everyone out of your, like, you know what I mean? Like, you've set up the travel industry pretty well in your country, whereas like other countries are still, even more quote unquote modern countries are still trying to figure that shit out. So right on. Good job.
If you have the money, the healthcare is not that bad. And if you're super into music, singing, dancing,
Oh, the
karaoke, Philippines is
best,
one of the best places
best,
for
the
it.
best.
Karaoke and Filipinos are like peanut butter and jelly. They freaking love their karaoke
And some of the most talented musicians today still coming out of the Philippines.
there. All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. Most men that go to the Philippines are not going for the culture or the views, they're going for the women. And this is a
Yeah,
complicated topic because I personally have no issue with the passport.
I kind of, but I'm a wait to hear what he says.
or bro movement, and even all of these older retired guys come to the Philippines to marry a younger girl. A lot of people make the argument that there's exploitation going on. I don't really see it that way. It's two consenting adults agreeing to be in a
Yes, of
relationship, and they're
course.
both getting something out of it. The man's getting a young, beautiful wife, and then the woman can essentially take her whole entire family out of poverty. Because it's
Yeah.
quite common that as soon as she gets married, the man takes care of the rest of her family. I think the biggest issue with a lot of passport bros, they conflate sexual tourism with actual dating.
Which, by the way, it says sex pets. Not that they conflate. It's just that a lot of I don't know if it's just last year and then I don't know if it's just the last like year and a half or 2 years, but when I really started looking into videos for like traveling and stuff, it just felt like people were turning every country into like a sex tourist country, regardless of what's going on. Right. Like, and it felt weird. Like, and I say this as somebody who's coming in trying to learn about the culture and everything else. So like, yeah, we watch videos sometimes about like what it's like to date people from certain countries because I do think it's interesting. But the problem is it's like almost all of it in the last 2 years has been like sex tourism. And I'm just I don't want to judge people because I know people are gonna do what they need to do, but it just feels like it's a lot. A lot of representation going one way, and I don't it kind of does a disservice to everybody else. I feel like to the rest of the country. I feel like that's just my opinion, though.
A lot of these older retirees go to the Philippines and they're not trying to sleep around with a bunch of girls. They're just trying to find a younger, more attractive wife. They really have that long term stability that a lot of these
Yeah.
women are looking for. Personally, I don't think that's really an issue. Now, I will agree that there are a lot of sexual tourists going to
Yes,
Thailand and the
that's
Philippines, but this is an interesting thing because unlike Thailand, where a lot of creators go there and sexualize the women, I think in the Philippines, the Filipino women also sexualize themselves. One of the biggest culprits of this is the
Yo, no. Oh, you know what's fucked up? Oh, sorry, excuse me. You know what's messed up? I was gonna react to her content because some of the videos that I haven't got any of these videos recommended to me yet. Actually, I think we reacted to one of her videos already. Dude, it's all connected. I'm entering the travel metaverse, the travel multiverse of characters. No. There's no escaping it. That's crazy. I mean, I haven't really seen that much videos, but the one that I'm pretty sure we reacted to one on the channel. If not, there's another one I'm reacting to that talks about cultures, like the culture. So it's just, maybe I should have done more research on all her videos. This is crazy. This is so funny.
the Filipina P. There's a lot of videos online about dating Filipino women. A lot of them are sex related. They're made from Filipinos themselves promoting that to the world.
But I gotta be fair here, though. 6 reasons why you should date a younger Filipinas. That's crazy. I mean, I would say this. It's kind of like sex sells, though, right? Like, I mean, the West does it too. It's just content, like right now. See, now I'm having to because I'm trying to be fair here. Let me know in the comments. Am I being too generous? Am I being too fair? Or should I stick to my original opinion of I still think I mean it is overly represented. He also kind of agreed with it. But man, now I feel bad because it's somebody I was reacting to. So nah, I'm conflicted.
So I don't think like a lot of foreigners are going to the Philippines specifically to try to sexualize the women the same way that a lot of people are doing in
No.
places like Colombia. So let's get into some of the pros and cons of Filipino women. Number one, they're extremely diverse. It's this beautiful mix of races that is very physically appealing to a lot of people. And that's why they've won Miss Universe so many times. A lot of the women
Yeah. Good job. Talented and beautiful.
here are loyal and very marriage minded because of the Catholic roots, and especially the one from the provinces are still raised with traditional values. They are definitely a lot less promiscuous than Western women, and the country itself has a lot of strong Catholic values. A lot of them speak English, which is a plus, and they are incredibly short. I think the average height for
Hey, all I'm gonna say is if there's anyone's God's perfect people, it would probably be the Filipinos, but he still had to make sure y'all weren't overpowered, so they gave y'all the short height. And I don't mean to be mean because Mexicans are pretty short too, but y'all just better than us in almost every way. So you gotta get the short card. It is what it is. Like, what can you do? You know?
For the woman in the Philippines is like 5 foot, and the average height for a guy is 5'4". So if you're a short king, 5'5", 5'4", it's quite easy to find a partner there.
5'66".
Shout out all my short kings. They're also super fun at parties, similar to black people and to Latin people. They're out there dancing, they're singing, their
Dancing
karaoke is always brought out in
queen.
Filipino parties. So they're just always having a very good time.
Yeah, and the parties go on forever. Let's go. That's the way I see it. Hell yeah. Where's Kyle?
They're also extremely open to dating foreigners. Americans are definitely seen as higher status, maybe not always with the best intentions, and they are also very clean and hygienic people.
Yeah.
But what are some of the cons? Just walk around the malls in Manila and you'll see that there are also a lot of fat people everywhere. And in my opinion, the average Filipino girl is actually not that attractive. It's just the extremes are extremely beautiful. They are notorious gossipers. Filipinos, very similar to Latin people, love to gossip all the time.
I know, did you hear? And then she tell me, I'm going to divorce. I'm like, my God, divorce? I know, right? My gosh.
The Philippines has a lot of social climbers because it's a very status-based society, which you can expect when there's a very high wealth inequality. So it's kind of hard to trust the intentions of a lot of women that you're speaking to, especially if you're American.
I mean, if you live in America, it's the same way right now too. So I mean, it's not much better. I mean, I'm not trying to say we have no room to judge everybody because it's not much better. But do y'all feel that it's actually like that though?
I know stories of so many foreigners who arrived to the Philippines and got a girl pregnant within 2 to 3 months, and now he's stuck with that woman forever. Now, I'm not saying that the Filipinas are gold diggers, but if you've come from a very poor country with a high wealth inequality, those women will put a lot more emphasis into finance.
But why? But do you blame them? One, but two, what's different from someone in the Philippines doing it versus someone in the U.S. doing it? If it's all the same, it's all the same. But also, you could also reframe that. Let's reframe it. Okay. Now, I'm not saying all gold diggers are good. I'm not defending gold diggers. What I'm saying is this: if I'm a woman and I say I want a man who has money and can provide for me, and I will make sure that I love him and he's taken care of, blah 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 blah. Right? When you reframe it like that, it's not actually bad. It's actually a great thing. But I think people need to be more clear with their intentions, right? I think that's what it is. Because it's like the way I see what he's saying, but sometimes maybe from like the Filipinas point of view, she needs to be more clear on what she really wants. I think I mean, because honestly, she may never know who she's ending up with either.
And that applies to everywhere in the world, whether it's Ukraine, Russia,
Yeah,
I would
good
even
point.
argue the US, Latin America, and especially the Philippines. Because I'm Chinese Filipino, a lot of my family was born and raised in the Philippines, so I kind of have this like weird half and half thing going on. But if you're like a white or black American, you are always going to be seen as the outsider. And when things go south, don't be surprised if all of them turn on you. And one of the big things is that if
I
you
didn't know
marry
that.
her, you are essentially marrying the rest of her family.
Is that true though? I think I don't want to gloss over that. If, like, say for example, if I were to marry a Filipina, if something were to go south, am I the one to blame? Am I going to be the scapegoat? Am I going to be? Yeah, you got. Would they be likely to turn on me? I mean, it makes sense, but is it as dramatic as it seems? I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
You may have to financially take care of the rest of her family. The involvement and the opinion of her family is going to be very important in the relationship. All right, so let's talk about some of the cons of the Philippines. I think the number one issue is the infrastructure. Overpopulated, it's extremely dirty, very polluted. They don't have really good options for public transportation. It's very crowded. The traffic is horrendous. There are a lot of natural disasters, and it's just overall not a well-developed country. There's also not drinkable tap water, which is actually a big issue in most of Asia. Out of all the countries that
I the luxury of being able to just turn on my water and drink it, it's crazy.
been to, poverty in the Philippines is some of the worst that I've seen in the world. Poor rages, a big portion of the population being extremely uneducated, and a huge wealth gap between the haves and the have-nots. I remember when I went as a kid, the population was at 80 million and it already felt super overcrowded, but just over the last 20 years, it's ballooned to 110 million. It's a population increase of almost 50%, so all of those issues are way worse. A lot of people also have the poverty mentality. Here's the metaphor I like to use. Let's say you're walking on the street. You have a beautiful street that's paved right in front of you. You're allowed to look at the trees, look far into the distance, look at the weather, because you don't have to watch where you're stepping. And now imagine you're walking on a road and it's completely broken. You can't really see into the distance. You're only looking at the next step so you don't get hurt. When you have a little bit of wealth and you're in a more developed society, a lot of things are taken care of for you, so you're allowed to think a lot more.
That's interesting. Interesting. Now, I wonder how that would be fixed, because I'm not going to get to like into the politics of the Philippines. I don't know enough to be able to make an educated answer on that. But what I wonder if, because you obviously have the wealth disparity, that makes sense. That's happening a lot of the world right now, in a lot of the world right now. Um, is it because there needs to be more investment, or is it because there isn't any investment? Right? Or the investment is being misused. Because let's say, for example, like I suddenly you snap my fingers and I'm suddenly a millionaire, billionaire. If I were to have money and I were to invest it in any country, I actually wouldn't invest it so much in the US, because I want to invest it in a people that I feel that are exciting, have a story to tell, are hopeful for the future. And the Filipinos seem like a very, you guys are so like, like I made the joke earlier, you God's perfect people, right? But like, and so I wonder if what's stopping you guys from really reaching y'all's potential as a country as a whole, if you guys are some of the best people. And so I just wonder if it's just outside investment. Um, because I mean, obviously you guys had the whole situation with it, like the people being able to buy condos. I don't know. Either way, if I ever get a bag, I'm gonna invest in the Philippines because you guys are awesome. Um, and it's not even like I want to make money off it. It's more of like making sure that people who are excited for the future are positive, um, have a story to tell, and they're gonna be passionate about it. I think that's, to me, has always been more important than money. So I just don't know, because as an outsider, I see you guys as the future. Right? As the West, the thing about America is we're always so competitive that we, with each other, our own selves, that we forget about what's in front of us, right? Because we're always worried about our left and right and what's behind us. But you guys are always, at least from what I've seen, are very positive and always hopeful for the future. And I think that's what makes a country and a people great, is because you have something to strive for, you working towards something. So to me, it's just crazy. Um, but also like obviously historical factors. But I do think like, what is the next step from y'all's perspective? What is that next? I guess what is the first next step for you guys? Do you believe is what's going to get y'all to where y'all want to be?
More into the future. But a lot of people from third world countries, because they don't have a good pathway to success, they're only focused on what's in front of them. It's very difficult for people to get out of poverty, which is why a lot of these women are looking to marry foreigners,
Yeah.
because if they get pregnant by a foreigner, they're able to take their whole entire family out of poverty. And unfortunately, in the Philippines, they have this mentality that in order to climb the ranks and become more successful, you have to put other people down. This, I think,
Is
comes
it
from
true
the fact that
though?
the Philippines is made up of a bunch of islands, so I think the people are a lot more tribal in nature. So please don't take this the wrong way when I say this,
Fair,
but the
fair.
education system in the Philippines is extremely poor. Now, I'm not saying that the Filipinos are dumb by any means. It's just the access to good education is heavily gate-kept by the rich. The country as a whole does not really prioritize education that much. The average IQ of the Filipino is on the lower side. The only way to get a good education in that country is if your parents can afford to put you in private schools and private universities. And this is really interesting because I would even make the same argument for the US. In the US, the average public school education is not that good, but if you're able to go to some of the most
That's the one thing that makes so people shit on American education, like, "Oh, Americans are stupid," but we have some of the best universities. And so it's not necessarily like high school is more of just kind of getting you where you need to go, but where you really grow as a person is here in colleges. Um, but yeah,
prestigious universities, which are extremely expensive. I
yeah,
think university in the US is a scam. Then you'll
it
get the
is.
benefit
It is. It's over. I wouldn't say it's a scam, but it's overpriced. Well, actually, in some cases, it is a scam. They be giving out these terrible degrees, but it is what it is.
benefits of a good education, but I think the majority of the population is quite ignorant. When you have a higher population of educated people, they get into more engineering jobs, tech jobs, things that really take the country forward. But when you have the majority of the population that is poor and uneducated, they are a lot more focused on trying to get ahead rather than trying to do what's best for the country. So one of my big
Mm. But at the same time, like I want to argue is okay, but if let's say for example, it are we bringing tech jobs to the Philippines? Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, is there even jobs for those who do graduate and have a really good education in the Philippines for them to be able to stay in the Philippines? Like one of the advantages America has is we naturally attract talented and skilled people from around the world. Even when we're doing terribly, we can somehow. I don't know. I don't know how we manage it. I'm not gonna. I don't even know how to. It is what it is. But even if there was somebody who was highly skilled, highly educated Filipino, could they stay there and do a job? Right. That's what I'm saying. So and I'm not saying that it has to be outside investment. I'm not saying it has to be an outside company bringing their jobs there. Is there even jobs to begin with that are being started there? Like if I let's say for example a technology job like a game studio, a video game studio. That's something I eventually want to open up. I want to own my own game studio. Um, I don't even need to make the games. I just want to own it, right? Because I love video games. So let's say here in the US, there's so much talent already here, but it's a little bit trickier to open one. But you could still do it. It's still possible. Could you do that in the Philippines? Is there enough resources, real estate for you to be able to buy and open up a studio? Like, what are the factors keeping those jobs away? Is it because I just don't want to believe it's just the education thing because I think once you bring those jobs there, the education will start matching that because then people can create a pipeline of education from straight from the school to work. It's the same way that we have in the US for a lot of our tech jobs. So it's like I don't know. I don't know. I need to learn more of that, but that's probably why I gotta ask you. What do you think? Is that like where's the barrier really? Um,
biggest issues is that the Philippines is a very materialistic and status driven society. The Philippines is so diverse, so I think this can vary based on the place. In Manila, specifically Makati, I felt like everybody there was super fake and trying to be an influencer and social climb. So a big issue that I've heard from Filipino is that a lot of them are two-faced and are not afraid to backstab you. If you get with a Filipina girl, you're also getting with the rest of her family. So that means you have to put up with the
Jesus Christ. But am I making excuses for my Filipino audience? Am I making excuses for you guys? Am I making excuses if I say that the West is like that when you live in a big city? I live in Seattle, Washington, a huge city. We got Amazon, we got all these tech companies here. Okay. This is why like my perspective on everything that I'm asking is based on that because I have real experience with tech here. So, but a lot of people are like that in big cities. I'm pretty sure it's worse in LA. Is it just that the Philippines is much closer to to Western entertainment, Western. And that's another thing too. I'm gonna get on a side rant real quick. People need to give y'all credit. Y'all, some of the y'all people say like the West, but y'all really contribute a lot to Western media and entertainment and culture. So in some ways, you guys are really a part of it. But because of that, that I feel that you're technically a part of it and contributed to it, you fall into the same people fall into the same traps that exist in the West. Do you see what I'm saying? Like it just makes sense. And that's why I'm not saying like I'm not surprised if that is true, which you got to let me know in the comments if it is. But it's like you got to it's that's just the part that's just part of it. If it is, you know? But let's see why Filipinos considered rude when they're actually very nice people. As a Filipino myself, these are some traits that make them out to be rude. Gossip the fuck out of everything. Always late. Okay. You can say the thing about Mexicans, but colonial mentality. What does that even mean? Crab mentality. What does that mean? Inconsiderate or thoughtless of everyone. Pinoy pride. Um, ignorant of rules, laws. Onion skinned, hypersensitive, very over emotional. Is that true? Extremely short tempered and impatient. Hypocrite. Double standard, two faced. Consistently always attention grabby, talks too loud or talks too much, mental illness is never taken serious, religious fanaticism, racism. What is this? Is literally describing every person in the world? Like, what is this? Is this a meme? Because like you can literally they nag. Yeah, I hate nagging. That's probably one of my least favorite things, but um bullying is acceptable. Hey, you know what? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say we need to bring bullying back. We need to stop babying everybody. But what is this? This is crazy. You can say this about anybody though.
Notorious gossiping, a lot of the shit talk behind your back, all the judgment that comes from them as well, and the family will know everything about your business. I personally like to keep my things a little private. I have a mutual respect for my family, but they allow me to live my life. Yeah, that doesn't really happen in the Philippines at all. When I was in Cebu as a kid, we were walking along the beach, and I remember I cut my foot because there was an open metal bar just on the shores of the beach, and my whole entire front toe was like cut up and bleeding. I remember when we were younger, we were like island hopping, and it surprised me that the Filipinos that were working on the boats and stuff were throwing trash and their cigarette butts into the water. They didn't really care for nature that way. Tourism is one of the main ways that you guys make money, so why aren't you guys taking care of the environment that attracts tourists? And it didn't make sense for me. Going back to the problem that just in general, the society isn't extremely forward thinking.
Is this true though? Because that would be kind of if your economy is tourism, which by the way is really hard to have. I think people need to understand this. Having a tourist economy, people think just magically happens. No, it's actually really hard to have and you have to maintain. Example, Dubai, they're trying to build more of their tourist economy. They're trying to do that right now. They're spending billions of dollars trying to get people to come to their country. Okay? Let's take the resorts in Mexico. People would visit Mexico. But what do you know what's really ironic is the cartels that control everything somehow take care of the hotels and the and everything over there. They don't touch it. Why? Because they know tourism is money and they got to protect it. The tourism economy, you have to protect it because once it's gone, it's really hard for it to come back. And so I hope this actually true that it's because this is kind of crazy. Because this is hey, I don't want to make excuses for anybody because if this is true, that's kind of you guys got to really think about it because once you lose that economy opportunity, it's gone. It's really hard to get back. It's extremely hard to get back. It's crazy.
One of the biggest issues of the Philippines, and the locals will tell you this, is the bureaucracy and the corruption. The Philippines is notorious for corruption, and this has happened for years. This is a good thing if you have money and if you have a little bit of fame. So if you want to get anything done, as long as you know the right person, you can kind of bribe your way to get what you want. But everybody knows that there's a lot of corruption in the government. People get there and take all of the funding that was supposed to go into infrastructure. That's why the majority of the Philippines is still extremely underdeveloped.
This explains a lot what I was asking earlier. Corruption. If this is true, yeah. If it's a corruption to like the next level where there's at least there's the one thing about the US, people think, oh yeah, we have corruption too, sure. But there's still a lot of checks and balances and people always competing that somehow it can kind of work out in some ways. It's more likely to work out the right way than it is the wrong way. Though it still happens the wrong way a lot of times. But when you get cases of extreme corruption, it's like you can't how what do you do? It's really hard to get rid of it. It's impossible almost.
I hear that a lot of the politicians are also paid off, and there's just a lot of shadiness going on in the government in general. And I've even heard stories of police officers stopping taxis for no reason, forcing them to pay a bribe or else they'll get a ticket. Unfortunately, the system is set up to keep the rich rich and keep the poor poor. So in my opinion, the Philippines is actually a little boring because there's not
Whoa! Of I didn't expect this one. This one's crazy. This one's wild.
a lot of things to do. The main things to do seem to be going to a mall, maybe going singing or dancing, going to the restaurant, going to a beach, but I think that gets old really quick. Something I love about Europe is that you can go out and you can walk around and there's beautiful parks, there's really good public transportation. You don't really need a car to do anything. In Makati, there's a specific area called Poblacion where all the bars and all the prostitutes are. A lot of people hype this place up, but to me, it was just so gross and grimy. A lot of the prostitutes were men. It just seemed very trashy. BGC is nice because it's a little more of a business district, but they're not really like clubs or things to do.
Is that true though? Because I've been watching some of the other videos they talk about that we've reacted to on this channel. Description in the description, we have a playlist. They talk about nightlife and things to do. So, we've reacted to Wes's videos before about Poland. So I trust what he says, but I need y'all to explain to me. Is there actually stuff to do in some of these places? Because I feel like there's got to be, right? Like why? There's no way people are just going there to work. It would be kind of that would be kind of a bummer. I feel like you know what I mean.
Because I have family and friends there, they were able to show me around and I got to see a lot of the lower key spots in the Philippines that
Oh
locals go
wow, I want to see stuff like this.
to. The average foreigner is not going to know this place exists unless you have a local show you around. And if you live outside of the city, like my family does, you need a car to get anywhere. You can't just like take public transportation. You can, yes, order a Grab or you can order like a motor taxi, and that totally works. And even something I like to do in Southeast Asia is go to computer cafes and play video games. They don't really have that in the Philippines, the same way that they do in Thailand or Vietnam
That's what I need to open up over there.
or a lot of places in East Asia. This may be a personal thing, but I personally don't really care for Filipino weather. I think Baguio is probably the place in the Philippines that I would like the most because it's like 16 to 21 in the mountains. Reminds me of Manizales in Colombia, which to me is the perfect weather. In the Philippines, you have heat and the humidity and a lot of dust and a lot of pollution as well. I always develop a cough when I go there. I would also say that the food quality in the Philippines is very questionable. Yes, you can go to the supermarket and buy some fresh stuff, but if you eat at a restaurant, a lot of the food feels like food from the US. High in calories, but low in nutritional value.
Oh dang, he's contradicting what I said about y'all's food. Is this true?
It's a lot of like canned and processed food. I remember growing up, a lot of the Filipino diet came from imported food because they're an island. Yes, you can cook yourself, but one of the draws in being in Southeast Asia is not having to cook. In Thailand and Vietnam, eating on the street is cheaper than cooking at home. I mean, granted, you can hire somebody to
Interesting.
cook the food for you, but I don't know, that just seems like a lot of work. That's why in Manila, they have a big obesity population because the quality of the food is not that good.
Is that why though? Or is it because there's just nothing to do? I don't know. At least the Filipino food I've had here in the US has been really healthy. So maybe it's just the ingredients. Maybe I'm wrong.
And Filipino food specifically as well. Yes, there are some healthy options, but a lot of Filipino food is fried, high in sugar, high in fat, high in salt. Should I do Vietnam?
Wow, dang, that was loud. Okay. So we learned a lot. So maybe I need to break my stereotypes, not my stereotypes, my expectations of what I'm learning about the Philippines because it comes out that a lot of things that I'm thinking are not true. Is it true? I don't know. Love you guys. Let me know in the comments down below. We got a lot to talk about. I'll see you on the Philippines, hopefully this New Year's. Love you guys. Bye. This video is brought to you actually by viewers like you. Thank you so much for subscribing and being part of my journey and allowing me to be a part of yours. Let's create new memories this 2025 on our road to 1 million subscribers. And with all that jazz out of the way, I just want to say thank you so much. I love y'all and enjoy the video.